Hey everybody, hope you're all doing good out there. I've got a bit of a fun idea today. So you've probably heard of this Open API Chatbot. It's an AI chat that you can ask questions and it can give you answers. It's an amazingly powerful tool at this point, and it's just in researching. It's in like a research stage. I'm not going to go into all the different things it can do because there is just so many aspects where you could go into. But I mean, the fact that it can fix code, it can make small programs by itself, you can ask it questions and it seems like a reasonably good answer is very impressive. LTT's done a video trying to get the bot to help them build a PC with instructions for like a new person who's never built one, and that went down fairly okay. The only issue you have though is that when it gives a wrong answer, it's going to give it with the same confidence of a right answer. So I wondered if it can build a PC, can it fix a motorcycle? And this is what I'm going to do in this video. I'm going to try and find out. We're going to think of a hypothetical problem with our motorcycle. We are going to ask the Open API if it knows what's wrong with it and how I can fix it, and just see if it correlates and works. I am quite confident this is going to work. Now I must make it clear here, the way that this works, it's not like it knows. What it's done is it's previously trolled the internet for all the information that it can up until about 2020 or 2021 I think. So sometimes if you're asking it questions about latest versions, it's going to be out of date. But it's got all that information there from previous years and it's kind of correlated it together so it can use that like it's knowledge, as it were. So yeah, without any further ado, should we just try and get on with this? So, what are we going to try first? Oh no, simple one. So your battery's dead. So you don't know your battery's dead because your lights are still coming on the dash, so it kind of looks normal. But when you go to start it, all you're hearing is a buzzing noise. Well, if you know motorcycle mechanics, you'll know that is a dead battery because your starter solenoid is basically not got enough power to fire to actually engage it. So it's a really dead battery. Yes, it could be a broken starter motor solenoid, but it's most likely not if it's moving. They tend to just not move when they're broken. Anyway, just before I click this button and find out that this is not going to work at all, who knows, I just want to say, I know some people might think that this isn't a useful tool that people are going to use in the future. I'm going to disagree with you strongly on that one. And the reason I say that is because, as you know, one of the simplest ways to find out any information in the world is to go onto Google and just Google it. Just search it and it's going to give you an answer, which is pretty much kind of like what this is doing, but it's doing it a bit more in depth. It's kind of doing a bit in between. That is a pretty efficient way of finding an answer. Yet what people very often do is go to a 6-year-old video of mine, reply to a random comment that I'd replied to at some point, and ask me why their bike is broken there. Honestly. People will also go to a video with the information, like my video talking about motorcycle licenses in the UK, and instead of watching the video, they will just put a comment on there and ask a question, hoping that someone will answer. But of course someone did answer, it's me every time. But the point is, the information's in the video and people will not go and get it themselves. So you might not think that people will use this in the future, and maybe you won't. I guarantee you it's going to become an important thing. Right, so my motorcycle will not start. It's just making a buzzing, clicking sound. What's wrong with it? So we know the battery's low. Let's see what happens. It sounds like there may be an issue with your battery or starter motor on your motorcycle. The buzzing sound you are hearing could be the starter motor trying to engage, okay, possible, but not being able to turn over the engine due to the lack of power or some other issue. I didn't even ask it to do this. To troubleshoot this problem, you will have to try the following steps. This is nuts. Are you seeing this? Right, so we read the top bit. To troubleshoot your problem, you can try the following steps. Number 1, check the battery. Make sure the battery is fully charged and the terminals are clean and tight. You can check the battery charge using a voltmeter or by taking it to an auto parts store and have it tested. 10 out of 10. That is the first thing you need to check, the battery. Number 2, check the starter motor. Probably not the second thing I'd check, because if the battery is dead, or then you know the battery's the issue. If the battery is charged and it's not starting and it's making a buzzing sound, it's going to be the starter solenoid. But this is a fair point, so let's just see what it says anyway. Check the starter motor, make sure that the starter motor is receiving power and that all of its electrical connections are secure. You can do this by using a multimeter to test for voltage at the starter motor's power supply wire. Yeah, that's, I mean, I have to say, for the first one, I'm not only impressed that it said use a battery, it's also saying you want to check the connections too to make sure they're clean and tight, because that can be the difference between a battery working and not working. You can just have some corrosion there, you think you've got a dead battery, no, you just give it a wiggle, all's good. So impressive. Second step, yeah, makes perfect sense, although I probably want us to check the start. There you go, number 3, check the starter motor solenoid. The solenoid is an electromechanical switch that controls the flow of electricity to the starter motor. If the solenoid is not functioning properly, it may prevent the starter motor from engaging. Correct, well, it just stops getting power to it. You can test the solenoid by jumping the 2 large terminals on the starter motor at the wire with a screwdriver. Caution while doing this, the starter motor engages and turns over the engine, the solenoid is likely the issue. That's kind of like an old school trick, jumping the starter. But I mean, yeah, fair. Check for other issues. If none of the above steps help, there is another issue with your motorcycle. It could be something as simple as a blown fuse or a loose wire. It could be something more serious like damaged engine components. You may want to take your motorcycle to a mechanic, have it properly diagnosed and repaired. Mind blown. Wow. I mean, I know this is being generated by something that someone wrote that was likely a mechanic and was doing this, but the fact it's correlated it together so quickly and so perfectly. Right, okay, thank you for that. Let's try a new one. See, now I want to try and think of something to really test it, because it just did that one just too well. Let's say we don't have spark because our HT cap is loose. So that would show itself as my motorcycle is not starting, but will turn over. Could be a number of reasons why your motorcycle is not starting even though it's turning over. Here is a few things to check. Number 1, fuel. Make sure you have enough fuel in the tank and that the fuel is fresh. Old fuel can clog the carburetor and prevent engine from starting. Okay, well that's kind of old school. I mean, I would say check that the petcock is turned on, but okay. 2, spark. So this is going through fuel, spark. Check the spark plug to make sure that it's in good condition. A damaged or worn spark plug can prevent the engine from starting. So if we took that spark plug out and put it back in, well, we would have just found the HT cap was off the spark plug. That just fixed it on step 2. We'll carry on. Battery, make sure your battery is charged and in good condition. Weaken the batteries, blah, blah, blah. Ignition, yeah. Oh, ignition. Check the ignition switch and associate wiring to make sure that everything is working properly. Okay, fine. Valves, make sure your valves are properly adjusted. If the valves are too tight, it can prevent the engine from starting. I mean, yeah, it's kind of jumping a bit too far down the rabbit hole, a bit too quickly there. But on stage 2, in our hypothetical scenario, that would have just found the issue. Right, we're going to have to go more complex with this. Let's just try this simple one. My motorcycle will not start on the kickstand. Does it know why? It is generally not recommended to try and start a motorcycle while it's on the kickstand. This is because the motorcycle can tip over if it starts while on the kickstand, which can cause damage to the motorcycle and potentially cause injury to the rider. If your motorcycle will not start on its kickstand, you should try starting it with the kickstand up. If the motorcycle starts in this position, there may be an issue with the kickstand switch, which is a safety feature designed to prevent a motorcycle from being started while on the kickstand. If the motorcycle will still not start the kickstand up, there could be a number of issues. Fuel, spark, we're going back through the same thing. That picked up that there is a switch on the stand, and there's so many people, my bike won't start when it's on the kickstand. Okay. As I say, I am blown away by the way that it's able to correlate this into good information. I'm pretty sure it's not copy and pasting everything exactly as it is there. It's correlating. And there's lots of misinformation out there about what it could and couldn't be. So for it to get down to that core reason, I guess that's just because there are so many examples of people giving advice saying, you know, I guess in everywhere that there is dialogue, it's learning from that. Like if someone says, oh, my bike won't start, and I've set parameters, it's then going to know from the other scenarios where that kept coming up, that's most likely the right answer if more humans came up with that than... Okay, okay, what about a really loose chain, but we're not going to tell it the chain's loose, we're just going to give it a symptom. My motorcycle is very jerky. So my motorcycle is very jerky and pulling away. What could be the issue? There could be several reasons for a jerky, uneven feeling when pulling away on your motorcycle. Number 1, Fuel mixture in the carburetor may be too rich or too lean, which can cause an engine to run poorly, resulting in jerky feeling riding. Okay, it seems to assume that everything is carbureted, but okay, fine. The ignition timing may be off. The ignition timing is set correctly. Okay, that could be. Spark plug, possibly. Transmission may not be shifting smoothly. If the transmission is not shifting correctly, it can cause jerky feeling while riding. It's also possible there could be an issue with suspension or tyres. The suspension is not upset correctly, blah, blah, blah. I would recommend having a mechanic diagnose the issues, determine the cause of the problem. They will be able to pinpoint the issue and recommend the necessary repairs. I mean, fair play. It's the correct answer, I suppose, because it hasn't gone to chain. Maybe that's because most people get why it's being jerky when their chain is loose, and not many people are asking that question. I feel like I've kind of stumped it a little bit there, but there's a question. I think it may be my chain. See what it says, if it's loose. A loose or improperly adjusted chain can definitely cause a jerky feeling when riding a motorcycle. If the chain is too loose, it can cause the engine to run poorly and result in jerky ride. On the other hand, if the chain is too tight, it can cause undue strain on the engine and transmission, leading to a jerky feeling as well. Not really, no. If it's too loose, you're going to get the take up where it's like kadoof, and then when you slow down, it takes up again. So you get a lot of like badoof, 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 and a little bit of jerkiness. Yeah, okay, fine. It's not going to affect how the engine's running. Too tight. If it's so tight, it's affecting how the engine is running. Wow. I mean, your countershaft bearings are going to have been shot a long time ago, and the oil's pizzied all out over the floor. But again, with a little bit more information, it's gone straight to the right answer. Can we go super specific? Let's go for a DRZ with a leaking countershaft bearing and see if it's got an answer. Okay, so my Suzuki DRZ 400 SM is leaking oil out the left side of the engine. What could the issue be? The issue is, which is a known fault with the DR, a loose countershaft nut, sprocket nut, and behind that is a seal and a bearing, and that can get popped out because kind of everything's held in by the bits on it. And if the nut undoes itself, which it's known to do, it can then, everything slackens off and oil can pee out the side of the engine. If you have a guard on there, like has been fit to my one, it doesn't happen. But does it know? Does it know about the... There are several potential causes for oil leakage. Some worn or damaged oil seals. The seal around the crankshaft and other moving parts can become worn or damaged over time, causing an oil leak to leak out. Cracks in the engine casing, okay, loose or damaged drain plug, causing faulty gasket, okay, fair. It got it on number one, but I don't know if that's specifically to the DR. Is it because I said the left-hand side of the engine? My DRZ 400, I'm just going to put that, is leaking oil. If it goes straight to that countershaft again, I will be... It's giving the same list, but in a different way. But it did go straight to... Did it say countershaft or did it say crankcase? Crankcase seal. Crankcase seal? Yeah, to be fair, that's not enough information. You see, when I gave it the left-hand side, it had a better idea. Okay, for the last one, I'm going to try and go as most out there as I can. So... my motorcycle is bogging when I try to pull away and it will not rev high. What is wrong with it? Classic example of, could be a fueling issue to be fair, but it can also be to do with the battery terminals being badly connected and it not getting the full power. There are several possible reasons your motorcycle might be bogging and not revving. Here are a few things to consider. Number one, air filter. A dry or dirty or clogged air filter can restrict the airflow, causing it to run poorly. By cleaning and replacing, that makes perfect sense. The bike would run shoddily, and then when you try to pull away, because it needs the air, it won't be getting it and it will bog. Fair point. Fuel. If the fuel tank is old, contaminated, that's a fair point. Spark plugs, yes. Throttle cable, if the yeah, okay. Engine. What? If the issue is not with any of the above components, it may be a problem with the engine itself. It could be a seized piston or damaged valve or other internal issue. If it's bogging, I mean, technically, I suppose, if it's not actually seized, it's just grabbing. Yeah, all right. And then if not, it's just you go to a... Okay, I think that's too... Could it be the battery? A weak or dead battery can cause problems with starting an engine, but is unlikely to cause the engine to bog or not rev high while it is running. If the battery is weak or dead, the engine may not start at all, but or it may start and then stall shortly after. However, if the battery is not charging correctly when the engine is running, it can cause the engine to run poorly. This can be due to a problem with the charging system, such as a faulty alternator or broken bell. It is worth, and that's a bit car related, it is worth checking the battery and charging system to see if either of these is causing the issue. It can check the battery, measuring voltage, blah, blah. It doesn't say about checking that the connections are on and giving them a wiggle. I think we found kind of the upper limit. There we go. I'm going to end this one here because we could go all day with this, and I do plan to go further with it, with different things. I just think this is an amazing, amazing tool. I mean, you literally, for most people's questions of how to fix their bike, that is way better information than I'm going to put together in 2 minutes replying to a comment. I mean, I put videos together that I put a lot of effort into, and that's got to have way more than that in there for people. But if someone says to me, you know, can you tell me what's wrong with my bike? It would be more efficient for me to just copy paste something out of this and give that to them after I've checked over it. And that's the point. It doesn't need to know whether it's right or wrong. I need to know that, but it can put that effort into putting it together far quicker than I could, which means that my time isn't wasted writing this all out. I'm just double checking that what it's created is correct. And that's where I think the power of AI sits. I know a lot of people think that this isn't real AI, that no AI exists and things like that. If you're young, like, well, I'm 37, I consider myself fairly young. Don't talk about middle age. Although technically I'm middle-aged. Oh God, I've just made that realise it. Right, moving on. You will see in your lifetimes what this will do. For me, what I want out of this is not any of this. I want a assistant which is actually good. Like, think Star Trek, think the computer. Hey computer, can you tell me about that? And it can do it. Hey computer, I've put some SD cards in the SD card reader. Can you import those into a folder, call it this, then put them together and sync the audio together for me so I can edit it? Of course, then it comes to the editing bit, where if it watches your editing style, they could make an editor with this in it, which after a time, it learns your editing style and will edit your videos for you. Of course, you'd have to give it some directions like, cut that, ignore that. Like, you'd have to like tell it when something you said was wrong, because there's always repeats in when you're doing something. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Wow. This is nuts. Of course, a lot of you are now saying, this is awful, this is going to take away someone's job. Well, no, because no one, if you don't know how to fix a motorcycle, but you do know now what's wrong with it, you can either learn how to fix that, or that is something we should go into next. Please tell me physically how to do a problem, how to physically fix an issue. Like, but then it's so specific to each motorcycle, I'm not sure it's going to be able to do that. Yeah. As I say, this is something that we're going to hear a lot more about in the future. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it. If you want to help support this channel, please consider doing that through Patreon. I'm going to having a big change in the next few, hopefully in the next few weeks, month or so. It's going to be videos of building out a studio, a new, set up. This is all going. I'm not going to be in this room myself. I'm going to have a much nicer background, and I'm going to be doing a lot more videos like this, sat down talking to you, live streaming, gaming, a lot more content as well as the bike stuff. That is the plan anyway, and I've been waiting since about September last year. So yeah, if you want to help support that, please do. Otherwise, I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye. This is nuts. This is nuts.